Snakes, mongooses, and hippos. Three human mistakes that turned entire ecosystems into chaos. From Guam to Hawaii to Colombia, these are the invasive animals that changed everything. These are three incredible stories about what can happen when humans introduce animals into completely new environments. In one case, a snake nearly wiped out an entire world of birds. In another, mongooses turned a tropical paradise into their own hunting ground. And in the third, just a few hippos grew into a population that is now almost impossible to control. From Guam to Hawaii and all the way to Colombia, we'll see how a single human decision can be enough to change entire ecosystems. Guam is known today for one of the most dramatic ecological disasters ever caused by a single invasive animal. And it all began with a snake that was never supposed to be there. It is the brown tree snake. It is believed to have arrived on Guam accidentally after World War II, most likely hidden in military cargo and ship shipments coming from other parts of the Pacific. The problem was that the island offered almost perfect conditions. There was plenty of food, the climate suited it, and it had almost no natural predators to keep its population under control. And then it began to spread incredibly quickly. These snakes are excellent climbers. At night they move through the trees, enter nests, and hunt birds, their eggs, and their chicks. But Guam's birds were not prepared for a predator like this. Many species had evolved on the island without similar snakes, so they never developed effective ways to defend themselves. The result was catastrophic. Their arrival led to the disappearance of approximately 75% of Guam's native bird species. As many as 12 native bird species disappeared from the island, and forests that were once filled with bird song became almost silent. Some species completely disappeared from the wild on Guam, while others survived only thanks to captive breeding and conservation programs. But the disappearance of the birds created another problem. Birds are not just inhabitants of the forest. They eat insects, spread seeds, and help plants reproduce and expand. When they disappeared, the entire island ecosystem began to change. At the same time, the brown tree snake population continued to grow. During some periods, their numbers became so high that snakes began appearing in homes, warehouses, and even on power lines. By climbing electrical infrastructure, they caused around 200 power outages a year, costing Guam approximately $4.5 million. Because of this, enormous efforts are now being made to prevent them from spreading any further. Cargo leaving Guam is inspected to stop snakes from accidentally reaching other Pacific islands. Traps, specially trained dogs, and even bait placed in areas with large snake populations are used to control them. But completely eliminating the species from Guam is extremely difficult. One accidentally introduced snake species was enough to trigger a chain of events that permanently changed an entire island. Today, Guam is one of the clearest examples of how devastating an introduced predator can be to an ecosystem that never evolved to defend itself against it. Mongooses in Hawaii represent one of the best-known examples of how an attempt to solve one problem can create an entirely new and much bigger one. It all began in the late 19th century, when sugarcane plantation owners were facing a serious problem with rats. The rats were eating the crops and causing major economic damage, so a way had to be found to reduce their numbers. The solution seemed simple. Small Indian mongooses were brought to the islands, fast and skilled predators known for hunting rodents and other small animals. The idea was that the mongooses would hunt the rats and protect the plantations. But there was one major problem that no one had properly taken into account. Mongooses are mostly active during the day. Rats are mostly active at night. This meant that the two species that were supposed to become enemies often barely encountered each other at all. The rats did not disappear, but the mongooses stayed. And as they spread across the islands, they began looking for other sources of food. They hunted insects, lizards, and small mammals, but native birds became a particularly serious problem. Many Hawaiian species had evolved for millions of years without land predators like mongooses. Some birds build their nests on the ground or very close to it, which made their eggs and chicks easy prey. For a mongoose, such a nest was almost a free meal. As a result, mongooses became yet another source of pressure on Hawaii's already vulnerable wildlife, alongside rats, cats, and other species introduced by humans. What is especially interesting is that mongooses never naturally spread across the entire Hawaiian archipelago. They were never successfully established on some islands, and today major efforts are being made to keep it that way. Authorities use traps, monitoring systems, and various control methods to prevent them from spreading further and to protect native wildlife. And so, an animal that was brought to Hawaii as a solution to the rat problem became another major ecological problem itself. The rats remained. The mongooses spread. Today, no one knows their exact number, but mongooses are so widespread across 4 major Hawaiian islands that their population is likely measured in the hundreds of thousands. And in the end, the animals that paid the highest price were those that had lived on these islands long before either rats or mongooses ever arrived. The third story takes us to Colombia, where Pablo Escobar left behind a problem that has continued for decades after his death. It all began in the early 1980s, when Pablo Escobar decided to build a private zoo on his enormous estate, Hacienda Nápoles. Among the elephants, giraffes, and other exotic animals were 4 hippopotamuses, 1 male and 3 females, illegally brought into Colombia. While Escobar was alive, the animals mostly remained within the boundaries of his estate. But after his death in 1993, the authorities took control of the property and relocated most of the animals. The hippos, however, were a much bigger problem. They were enormous, dangerous, and extremely difficult to transport, so they were simply left behind. The hippos began leaving the estate and spreading through rivers, lakes, and wetlands connected to the Magdalena River basin. The warm climate, abundant water and food, and most importantly, almost no natural predators to control their numbers, created nearly perfect conditions. They began reproducing rapidly. From just 4 animals, a population emerged that is now estimated at around 200 hippos, spread across parts of the Magdalena River Valley. Hippos spend much of the day in the water, where their waste introduces large amounts of nutrients. This can alter the chemical composition of the water, affect oxygen levels, and disrupt ecosystems that never evolved alongside an animal of this size. Their spread also poses a potential threat to native species, such as river turtles and manatees, as well as to people who live, fish, and work along the rivers. Because although a hippo may look calm, it is one of the most dangerous large animals in the world. There have already been cases in Colombia where people were injured during encounters with them. The problem became so serious that Colombia officially declared the hippos an invasive species. Sterilization is extremely expensive and complicated. Relocating hundreds of animals is almost impossible, and the population continues to grow. That is why, in 2026, Colombian authorities announced a program involving relocation and population control, as well as the euthanasia of approximately 80 animals. Without serious intervention, estimates warn that the population could reach around 1,000 hippos by 2035. Escobar is long gone, but the animals he brought to Colombia remain. And these 3 stories show us just how easily a single human decision can change an entire ecosystem. A snake that arrived by accident, mongooses introduced as a solution, and hippos that were never supposed to live in Colombia. All of them left consequences that are still being felt today. And sometimes, once nature is changed, fixing the damage is far more difficult than anyone expected. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from around the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.